Welcome to the Sustainable Success Show, where we share real-world ideas, strategies, and systems to help you build success that lasts in business and life. Each episode delivers practical insights you can apply immediately without burnout, chaos, or short-term fixes that don't scale. At the foundation is emotional intelligence and effective communication, how you lead yourself and how you connect with others across personalities, generations, and cultures, because that's where trust, engagement, and performance are created. I'm Christopher Salem, your host, and this is where sustainable success becomes your competitive advantage. Hi, welcome to Sustainable Success. I'm your host, Chris Salem. Hope everyone is having a great week. We are excited again to have all you new listeners coming into our new format that we launched back at the beginning of January of this year. And it has been a huge success. And again, we want to thank our existing listeners that have been with us now going on 9 years. Yes, 9 years where we were just an audio-based show. And now with the new video format that we have, you can also now watch our guests visually, not just by hearing them each and every week on our YouTube channel. And that's at Christopher R. Salem. And then, of course, we are available on Spotify, Apple, Amazon Music, and iHeart as well, wherever you prefer to download and listen to this show. Again, if you'd like to hear content on a future show that we have not covered, feel free to reach out to our team here at SustainableSuccess.net. That's Chris at SustainableSuccess.net. Our show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to meet new people for the first time. Now, it is a membership program taking out all the noise out of social media. You get to generate genuine and authentic relationships with the people you choose to interact with. If you'd like some more information about Alumni Direct, check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, we're excited to have a subject matter expert with us here today, Dr. Phillip Meade. And before I introduce him, we're going to be talking about succeeding at transformational change. And this is going to be a show that you want to listen, an episode you want to listen to when it comes to your business, organization, and also on a personal level. And a little information about Dr. Phillip Meade. He is a transformational leadership expert with over 30 years of experience in systems design and culture change. Now, as a senior leader at NASA, so he's going to be sharing a lot of experiences, things he did at NASA. He led a cultural transformation following the Columbia tragedy, guided the workforce transition during the Space Shuttle retirement, and helped reinvent Kennedy Space Center into the world's busiest commercial spaceport. And today, now he is a consultant and keynote speaker, subject matter expert in this area of culture shift and also transformational change, and also leading from the inside out. And without further ado, we welcome Dr. Phillip Meade to the show. Dr. Phillip, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. And Dr. Phillip, we always like to start off the show, to kind of set the foundation for the listeners, what we're going to talk about succeeding, for transformational change. Let's talk a little bit about how you evolved, in your role at NASA on a personal, professional level, and what brought you here to this moment today, and what you're doing to help organizations and people alike with that cultural shift that you get involved in.
Chris, that's a great place to start, because I'll tell you, the thing about transformational change is that it's the type of change that can't truly occur without the human beings transforming themselves as well. And so all transformational change occurs first and foremost inside the person. And throughout my career, I've had a constant set of transformations that have taken place. And as you might imagine, working for NASA, I started out as an engineer. My background is in engineering. I have an undergraduate in electrical. My PhD is actually in industrial engineering. But coming out of school, I was very much like what you would imagine, Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory.
I remember,
I had a lot of, and part of it was my personality, and part of it is literally how they train you to be in school. Like they take a proclivity and then they just double down on it.
Yeah. You get forced into this box or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you do 4 pages worth of math, and at the end of that, you write a single answer down and you put a box around it, and it's either right or wrong. And so you come out and I had this right or wrong thinking, like black and white, very black and white. Things are right or wrong. Um, my version of communication was, I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. If I was technically accurate, and you didn't understand it, then that was your problem. And I wasn't a mean person, but I also wasn't very socially astute either. And one of the things that really helped me very early in my career is I was put into a leadership position where I was actually, because I was NASA, I was leading contractors who were much older than I was and much more experienced than I was. And I was at least self-aware enough to realize that I didn't know as much as these guys. And if I was going to be successful, I needed to depend on them. And so it really shifted my perception of what it meant to be a leader and also what it meant to do my job. And so I was able to learn very quickly that, okay, I need to shift how I approach the way that I do my job. I need to see myself as being a facilitator and a supporter. I need to really look at, how do I help them be successful? How do I help get them what they need? How do I, create an environment where they're able to work together and do their jobs better? And so that was very helpful to me. And NASA is a great place to work. So they provide a lot of personal development opportunities. And so they gave me the opportunity to begin learning more about myself, learning more about how human beings work, which really started me on that growth trajectory.
Love it. And I love that, that the people element is so important. So let's talk, about, succeeding at transformational change, whether if you want to start with, your experiences at NASA and what they did with, how they developed their cultures, whether if they were siloed or eventually how they integrated together and what that can mean for other people listening that run businesses or business units, or even on an individual level. Anything you'd love to share on that would be really beneficial to our audience.
Sure. Well, I think it's important to recognize with transformational change that, like I said before, it really starts from the inside out, and it's the type of change that can't occur without a meaningful change happening at the human level. And I'll use it as an example of this, the culture change after the Space Shuttle Columbia accident. And when I was asked to take on this leadership of this culture change initiative, I was completely terrified. And one of the reasons why I was terrified, it wasn't just that the type of change initiative it was, which was a little bit outside of what I was used to leading, which were more technical projects. It wasn't just the fact that, there was a spotlight on it from Congress. I mean, the entire shuttle fleet had been grounded and we couldn't launch again until we fixed this thing. But the thing that scared me the most was really the fact that I thought NASA was the best place in the world to work. And so a lot of people, and I've got a talk on this called Why a Good Culture Doesn't Matter. A lot of people think that culture is all about employees loving where they work. And that's an aspect of it. I don't want to sit here and make it sound like, oh, it doesn't matter whether employees enjoy coming to work or employee engagement doesn't matter. Employee engagement is hugely important. And there's a ton of studies that will just prove over and over again how much that contributes to the bottom line. And so you want engaged employees, but if you stop there, you're really missing the point, because that's not everything that culture is. Culture has to not only do that, it has to be a significant driver of why your company exists. It has to drive your strategy. If it's not driving your strategy, if it's not contributing significantly to your market success, then it's really not doing what you want it to do. It's not your strategy. It's not effective for you. And so for NASA, we needed strategy. We needed our culture not just to be the best place in the federal government to work, which we were awarded that title right after the Columbia accident. So we needed to be more than that. We needed to be a place where our culture actually contributed to mission success, which meant that it needed to not just
be results or the KPIs. Exactly.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not just employees love working here. It's not just we're highly engaged workforce. It's that the culture also drives behaviors that contribute to mission success, that produce a safety climate where astronauts are able to launch safely and are able to come back to Earth safely. I mean, that's really what it's all about. And so many businesses, I believe today, are over-focused on the employee satisfaction component, which, again, I'm not saying to ignore that, but if you're not looking at how is this also driving our strategy? How are we intentionally designing our culture to drive our strategy? How are we producing behaviors in our employees that naturally drive us where we want to go?
Yeah.
When you're leaving so much on the table.
I love that, because it's like one spectrum to the other. Like either it's a toxic environment, or now everyone's engaged and everyone's talking, but yet nothing's still getting done, or not to the level that you want. So it's got to be somewhere in the middle, that harmony between both. It's never going to be perfect balance, but yet where, like you said, where's that harmony, how they're feeding off of each other.
Exactly. And one of the things that I learned as I began to dig into this, because it was actually a gift for me that NASA was named the best place to work in the federal government, because it cured me of just taking that surface level view and saying, okay, well, let's just fix the obvious surface level problems that we're seeing here. And it drove me to dig deeper. And so not only did I realize that we needed to intentionally design the culture so that it drove the behaviors that we needed for our specific mission, it also drove me to dig deeper and realize that to truly address culture, it requires that you address what's happening inside the individual human being. And that's where true transformation occurs. And so when we think about how do human beings behave within an organization, how do people, why do they do the things that they do? It really comes down to how do they feel about themselves while they're in the workplace. And it can be very subtle. And so sometimes things that you think are really great attributes about an employee or about a workforce, they can sometimes combine in ways that could be surprising to you when you mix things in a way that creates a particular formula that you wouldn't expect. So an example of this from NASA is, the NASA employees, they absolutely were highly dedicated, highly engaged. They loved the mission. In fact, they loved it so much it was a part of their identity. They thought of themselves first and foremost as a NASA engineer. More than that, they identified themselves as whatever specific subsystem of the shuttle that they worked on. Like I was they would say I'm a TPS engineer, or I'm a, whatever, engineer. And that's who they were. And so you would think that that's really good. But then you combine that with a political environment where there's constant threats of program cancellation, Space Shuttle or a space station program that just passed by one vote in Congress, schedule for shuttle launches that's tightly coupled with International Space Station completion, and all the schedule pressure, budget pressure. And now all of a sudden you've got these type A personalities who believe that failure is not an option, that are put in this pressure cooker to try and save this thing that they love so much. You're creating an environment where now all of a sudden maybe they're accepting risks that they shouldn't accept. Maybe they're not seeing things that they would want to see. And maybe the risk of speaking up and saying something when they don't have 100% of the data, but their intuition tells them, hey, this foam strike that hit the leading edge of the wing, it looks like something we've never seen before. I'm really worried about it, but I don't have data to prove it. How bold am I going to be in speaking up and saying that? Well, if my identity is at risk, if I speak up and I'm wrong, now, the risk reward trade-off, it gets skewed in a way that makes it very difficult for me to stand up and risk that much if I'm wrong. And so these are the way that things kind of get combined, and it's what's going on inside the human being that we don't see on the surface. And we want to be able to address that.
It's so important because, like you said, whether if you want to deny it or not, that there's always every person, there's something going on inside of them. Some people are going to be either more positive than others. Some are vibrating energy-wise higher than others. Some people are going through maybe a traumatic time in their lives personally, and all of these reflect outward, just like you said, leading from the inside out. What's going on the inside reflects out. And even though we can't be responsible for people's personal lives. If we create a space where we can help people to help themselves and be, if we understand that there's something maybe holding them back, you don't have to give us all the, the details, anything personal, that we can adjust and adapt so that we're not trying to bleed a stone or, get something out of somebody that clearly is not in that frame of mind to do it at that given moment, type of thing.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, Chris, that adaptation, that is the key. There was a psychologist named Will Schutz that in the 1950s, the Navy invited him in because they were absolutely stumped. They thought, and to their credit, I mean, it makes sense when I say this, they thought that the best way to get the highest performance in the control rooms of their ships was to take the smartest and the best performer at every single position and put them in that position all at the same time within the control room. And so they tried this across the Navy, and being the Navy, they actually measured statistically what the results were. You know what they found? It was random. The results were no different than if they just randomly picked a bunch of different sailors for those positions and put them in there. And they're like, what the heck is going on? So they brought this psychologist in, and they had him study it for several years. And what he found, which now in retrospect sounds super intuitive, what he found was, you know what makes teams perform better? Teamwork.
Yeah. Yeah. and I always find that with teamwork, it's the communication. And I always say communication is either going to make or break you. and love to hear your insights on that. Like when, just with that example, like, think about, I'm a big football fan, right? And you could have a bunch of first round talent on a team, but it's all about me, and my stats versus maybe a group of players that are decent players. They're not going to be grade one, round one talent, yet they communicate well. They understand their role and duties well. And through that communication on a consistent basis with each other, they're able to win more games.
Yep. You're absolutely right. I mean, you nailed it. And it goes back to that adaptation thing. So the psychologist, Dr. Schutz, what he found was, I mean, communication is a part of it. He analyzed all the different behaviors, how they're interacting, how do human beings interact with each other, and he was able to simplify it and make it a model that we can actually digest and work with. He was able to group all the ways that we interact with each other behaviorally into three basic categories, 3 buckets. And he says the way that we interact with each other falls into either inclusion, how much we include and want to be included; control, how much we control and want to be controlled; and openness, how much we're open with and want others to be open with us. The openness is a communication piece, obviously, yes. Right? And we all have preferences about how high we want to be on all of those things, right? And that's okay. And that's not what makes people successful or teams successful or not. It's that adaptation, and it's getting the self out of the way, just what you talked about, which means that, do I have the ability in this moment to flex away from what my preference is on inclusion, control, and openness to do what's in the best interest of the team at this time, because that's what will make us successful. If not, if I'm just going to focus on me and say, nope, I want to be high control right now, I want to make all the decisions, whether it's in the best decision in the best interest of the team or not, then I'm going to actually hurt team performance. So I need to be able to flex down on control sometimes, flex up on control sometimes, be in the middle on control sometimes. And it's exactly what you're talking about, like on sports team, Yeah. You don't need one person. I'll use basketball. You don't need one person dribbling the ball all the time. Like if you have only one person dribbles the ball, that's not a good team. You don't need one person that shoots all the shots. Like we need to figure out like what's best for the team right now. How do we distribute the ball? How do we distribute, the plays? How do we help defense? How do we interact and shift that as we go? And what happens is that as human beings, we have this psychological defense system that kicks in that's always active for all of us. And quite often, in most instances, we're not aware that it's even operating in the background. And when it gets triggered, whenever I start to feel insecure about myself in any way, for whatever reason, and it gets triggered and it jumps in to try and save me, what happens is that I will become behaviorally rigid in some way because I am trying to use my behavior to help fix this problem rather than to focus on what's more effective for the team. So let's say, for example, I'm afraid that I'm going to be embarrassed because I don't look like I'm as competent as I want to feel. Like I'm going to be embarrassed because I don't know the answer to something, right? I can, instead of flexing down and being lower control, I can go super high control, even though it's not effective for the team, because I want to make sure that it looks like I know what I'm doing and that I stay in control, because I'm using behavior not to do what's best for the team, but to manage my own feelings about whether I look like I know what I'm doing or not.
Yeah.
Right? I've shifted the whole goal of what are we doing here? No longer am I focused on the team. I'm focused on me, but I don't know that consciously. And that's the problem. I'm not doing it because I'm thinking, hey, I want to be super selfish. Let me tank the team because it's all me, me, me. That's again, defensiveness. Now, when I think that about another person or another player, that's me becoming defensive and now blaming them and not recognizing that I'm becoming defensive, and now I'm telling myself a story that's unkind to them, just like they're becoming defensive and they're telling them some story that they're not even aware of. And their story makes perfect sense of why they need to go high control. And that story doesn't include them being a villain, because we never tell ourselves stories about us being villains, right? We're always the hero of our own story, right?
So true.
Who wants to be the villain of their own story?
Not me. I know that for a fact. Yeah, absolutely. No, I love what you shared there. And, when it comes to people that are listening to this and they're going, wow, man, Dr. Phillip is just really, really, you hit a chord in them, and they can recognize where they have to improve. And obviously they may see where some of the people that work for them have to improve. What would be like some suggestions, like to take that first step? You're not going to make transformational change overnight. This is a process, and it has to start with you to be the change. You can't control other people, so you have to be the change and be resourceful for them to do for themselves.
It absolutely is. I mean, we call it a journey, and it's a journey that doesn't have a finish line. So we're all on it. We're all working towards it, and we call it a recovery model. It's not a perfection model. So I still get defensive. I get defensive all the time. It's something that I work on. What I try to do is I try to hopefully recognize quicker when I become defensive and recover from it faster, so that I don't live in that place of defensiveness any longer than I have to.
Exactly.
And from a leadership perspective, leading by example is huge. And I'm going to take a wild guess and say you've probably experienced this yourself. One of the things about defensiveness is that defensiveness breeds defensiveness. Yeah. And one of the best ways to overcome defensiveness in others is to remain calm and non-defensive myself.
Absolutely.
In the face of it. And so as a leader, if I can demonstrate that, if I have an employee that's coming to me and they're becoming defensive, if I can remain calm and non-defensive myself, if I can, get curious, not furious, right? And start asking them questions about what's going on for them. Why do they feel that way? What do they think that? Help them to start realizing that this is a story in their head, and maybe some of the components of that story might be made up, or they're filling in some gaps with some things. And let's see if we can figure out exactly how much of the story is actually factually based versus, what they're filling in. That's how I can help them to start to see this. And the amazing thing about this, Chris, is that if you think about it, if you accept what I'm saying is true, if all of us get defensive all the time, and this is just part of human nature, and you think about the average organization of 1,000 or 5,000 employees, and this is happening all across the organization every day, it's just the constant cumulative drain on performance across the organization of the little micro arguments, the little micro spats, I'm not going to communicate to this person right now because they ticked me off, or I'm not going to share this information with them because they're one of those people in that department, or all of those things that are happening. Like, this is it's just cumulatively 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year.
It adds up.
And so the flip side of that is just what you said.
Yeah.
If I start working on this, even just small degrees of reducing it, it has the opposite effect. Just even small improvements across my organization and helping people to increase their self-awareness, see just a little bit more of, hey, okay, maybe I should give other people the benefit of the doubt, or maybe I can realize that this is a story in my head and I can go check some of the facts, pausing to calm down a little bit before I send that email. Some of these things are common sense. Some of these things are not. Some of these things we aren't taught. But to the extent that we can start to learn these things and start to spread it through our organization, it's amazing the impact that it can have on overall productivity, because it's just, death by 1,000 cuts, or whatever, analogy you want to use there. But it's happening across every organization all across America.
Well put, and so true. And they, you kind of reminded me, and I can't remember the exact term, but Navy SEALs are trained to not ignore, but not to react from defensiveness. Like it's like you said, how to be calm and collective, even when they're being, in a really tough situation or someone's coming down on them. Because by being calm and collected, they can now see where there's an opportunity to make something better, versus out of reaction. They're so caught up in fighting back. You don't see where the solution is. You're blind to it. And now if other people are picking up on that, they're reacting, and it just creates more a chain reaction of reaction.
Yep. The crazy thing about defensiveness, there's at least two things that make defensiveness crazy bad in the business environment. First, most people, I want to say all people, but the engineer in me doesn't want to say absolutes. At least most people have a significant drop in IQ when they become defensive.
Yeah.
And so in most business settings, if not all business settings, that's not a good thing. So and that's part of what you're talking about with the Navy SEALs. Like when you're out there in the field and you're trying to make critical, life or death decisions, you don't want your IQ to drop by 20 points suddenly.
No.
That's not a good thing. And I don't think you want that same situation happening in most business environments. The second thing that happens for us when we become defensive is what we call a distortion in perceptual accuracy. And so if you think about it, you're probably familiar with the term cognitive dissonance. Most of us aren't capable of living long-term with cognitive dissonance. It's not, if my story about the world, my version of reality, and the facts that I acknowledge, if they don't match, it causes me psychological pain in a way that I have to somehow reconcile it and bring it back together.
Yeah.
So the way that I reconcile that when I become defensive is if I need to tell a story to myself that allows me to become the hero and make you into the villain because of this argument that we're having, right? Then what I do is my subconscious picks facts that help support that story. It ignores facts that don't support that story.
Yep.
And it may even make up a few facts that aren't even part of the story whatsoever, so that it creates a story that supports it, because it's not going to let me believe this thing and tell this story that doesn't match reality. But reality is not reality. Reality is the story in my head. And that's what I've got to get through. But if I'm now...
it's always like you got to see it for what it is, not just the way you think it should be.
Right. But the scary thing is, if I'm now operating out of this version of distorted reality, and I'm making decisions for us as a company, and my IQ is dropped, that's a double whammy.
Yeah.
So what does that do for us as an organization if I'm walking around and I'm trying to make decisions for us in that state?
Oh, God, Dr. Phillip, this has been an incredible insight from you. I wish we had an hour to do this show. We got to definitely have you back again.
I'd love it
for round two to continue on here. I want to make sure that you have time to let the audience know where to contact you. First of all, I want to thank you, not only for me, but the rest of our team here at Sustainable Success for taking the time to be here with us, sharing these valuable insights. And we encourage everyone to go back and listen to this show in its entirety. A lot of great insights that Dr. Phillip had shared. what is the best way that our audience can get in contact with you? What are you up to, and anything that you'd like to provide them?
Thank you, Chris. Well, obviously, you can go to our website. It's GallagherEdge.com, GALLAHER edge.com. And, one of the things that we're offering to listeners is the opportunity to take a little mini assessment of your organization and just see, what's going on with the culture. Maybe there's something that we're not aware of. Maybe there's something going on that's more than, is everybody happy, or do we have a ping pong table in the lobby? That kind of a thing. And so if you want to take that, it's free. It's called ML Mini, as in missing links, mini.com. And so you can go there and take that assessment, and you'll get a free report emailed to you. And obviously, you can check out our book, The Missing Links, Launching a High-Performing Company Culture. You can get that on Amazon. And, that's probably the best ways to get in contact with us. And I hope you reach out.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure all of that is in the show notes, so everybody will be able to access that for Dr. Phillip in the show notes, whether if you're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, whatever, that stuff will be in the show notes. Dr. Phillip, thank you so much again for being here with us today.
Thank you, Chris. I had a great time.
Thank you. And listeners, we want to thank you each and every week joining us here at Sustainable Success. Again, we are committed to your success, both personally and in your business, as we bring in subject matter experts like Phillip in each and every week to share their insights, personal experience to help elevate you and your business to the next level. Till then, everybody, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Friday at the same time, 12 noon East Coast time, and at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Till then, have a great rest of your week. Take care.